Lucy,
What are you doing, Diann?
what are you doing?
What are you doing?
Let me see what you're reading. What are you reading? You're still doing that on Kiwi Wings, Lucy Cranston Coles, Coles on lulu.com. Find that book. I have a question for you because you know what? I've read the book.
It never ends, you know? The editing goes on and on
Even
and
after
on.
it's published?
Well, it was published, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. And so I think we're talking about the quality of the lovely story. Now, I have a question about this book. Now, I know you have lots of characters, and the main character is Maura Longacre.
Indeed.
And just remind me of a little bit about her. You call her what kind of a sprite?
Maura is an eco-sprite. Eco. Interestingly enough, she lives in the recycled sleeper cab of an 18-wheeler truck. It's perched on the boundary line of a regional airport up in the hinterlands of Michigan.
And she's a stewardess.
She is a flight attendant, dear.
I'm sorry.
She's a flight attendant.
Pardon
please.
me. International flight attendant. And she
Yes.
meets lovely Cal, who
She does.
is a lovely looking, handsome hunk.
Well,
and
I wouldn't call him a hunk, but if you interpret him as a hunk,
well,
go for it.
I think Maura would think he's a hunk. And
Maura
he has
really
an art
likes him.
and he has an art gallery in
Taos, New Mexico.
And one of the primary characters in this on Kiwi Wings is one of the artists at the gallery. And who's that?
Boy, you are moving fast, girl.
Yes.
Can I clarify a bit since we're on
Sure.
camera?
Sure.
Maura and Cal are long-distance lovers, the result of a meeting, a hookup, tequila-drenched, in Seattle International Airport. Maura decides to pursue the relationship, as does Cal. She flies from her home in Pellston, Michigan, to his home in Taos, New Mexico, and begins a journey of meeting his ex-wife, his former lover, who happens to be a Native American two-spirit male, his kids of his marriage, and beyond. And yeah, it's a pretty interesting love quadrangle.
And I have a really important question. You don't need to spend a lot of time on the answer, but sex scenes?
Are you kidding?
A few sex scenes.
I don't want my mother to read this. But
Okay.
they're great sex scenes, of course. They're not graphic, but I'd call them highly suggestive.
I've read a couple. Actually, they're lovely. They're sweet. They're
Thank
passionate. They're comprehensive. I think so. I think I've reread them. By the way, and reread
Oh yeah,
them.
did you
Yes.
enjoy them?
Yes, I did.
Good.
But I wanted to get, because this is our second video where we're talking about this, and we are assuming that our audience has already seen the first video. If they haven't, they need to go back and see
Shame
the
on
first
them,
video.
you know.
But one of the things that I've heard you discuss when you're talking about this book, so I'm pushing you forward, is the way in which you as the writer are using the 3 settings to help move the plot and the theme of the book forward. Am I making sense with that? Is that pretty close to what you were talking about? Because you said, you've got Michigan and you've got New Mexico, Taos, New Mexico, and I know there's also a third prominent setting, and what's that?
Yeah. The third prominent setting is what generated the title on Kiwi Wings, and that is the South Island of New Zealand. where, as a gallery owner, Cal goes to shop in particular for his glass that he displays at the gallery. And on one such trip, Maura gets to go with him. It's her first trip to New Zealand. One starry night, I'm not giving anything away with this because it's in the prologue, she awakens from their cliffside cottage to implausibly bright starlight and gets up out of bed, goes out onto their deck, and actually sees a kiwi bird, which is presumed extinct in most parts of New Zealand, and in particular where they were. Nobody believed her. And in reality, this happened to me, and nobody believes me. But I did see a kiwi bird.
And I want you to talk about, before I ask you to read a little bit of the prologue.
Oh my.
To me, I want you to talk to me just briefly about the use of setting. Besides for plot, there's more going on at the use of setting, correct?
There is.
And tell me, if this a complicated, it's from on the front end, it sounds like a complicated concept. Can you clear me up on that?
Yeah, and it's really not so complicated, I don't think. Maura is an avid environmentalist. I describe her as an eco-sprite in the book, and indeed she is. She chooses to live in the sleeper cab of a truck to decrease her environmental footprint. And as such, she is nurtured by the landscapes that she inhabits. Michigan is juicy, green, lush, and a bit barren. And New Mexico is dry and arid and exotic and exciting and rugged. And New Zealand is a little bit of everything. And the fact that the book is called On Kiwi Wings is not only relevant from the fact that she sees this extinct bird whose wings are actually too small to allow it to fly, but as a matter of fact, you'll find that throughout the book, sightings and interactions with birds create emotional segues between emotional highs and lows within the book.
Yeah, that's nice. That's nice.
Thank
so
you.
The setting acts as acts to reflect what's going on in the plot.
It does.
Enhances the plot.
Absolutely. People who read the book are enamored with the setting. They feel like they've been there.
Can you read an excerpt, please, quickly?
Well, I don't know if I can read an excerpt quickly. Shall I just grab something?
Yeah. Or is there anything in the epilogue you'd like to read, or is it
in the prologue?
I'm sorry, in the prologue, yes.
Well, I'll just read the first chapter and
Please,
the first
please.
paragraph, and we'll see how it goes.
Okay.
And mind you, this is the prologue. It's not action within the novel, so to speak. It is widely believed that the kiwi bird, endemic to New Zealand, is extinct. Well, that's pure fantasy. How do I know? I know because I, Maura Longacre, saw one with my own eyes on the Banks Bay of the South Island of New Zealand in the middle of one sleepless and magical night. They are nocturnal, so when else would I see one? Yup, it was a really sweet moment indeed. It was during a period of our vacation when I was having trouble sleeping, so I knew I was awake. I was awake every night, it seems. So the night of the kiwi was no exception. As usual, I got awake after just a few hours' sleep. I squirmed around our cozy little double bed, which was wedged into this lovely little window nook. It's one of those spaces that looks really engaging and romantic, and it is all of those things for one's waking hours, and, you know, making love or something.